This is the Deliberate Talks Weekly Podcast, powered by the Pixelated Egg Digital Ventures. Tune in every week to learn something new about digital marketing and entrepreneurship. And now, over to the voice of your host, Dakshin Adyantaya. Enjoy the show.
Hello and welcome to a brand new week and an episode that on a Monday will give you a happy high feeling. So get your notebooks and your glasses out and tune in for a conversation with me, Dakshin Adyantaya, and our guest Ajit to learn all about his entrepreneurial journey, some bites on wine tasting, bartending, and cocktail recommendations. But before that, let's get there on a high note with some cool stats about the wine industry in India and globally. Did you know the global wine market is projected to grow at a CAGR of 4.28% during the forecast period of 2021 to 2026? The online sales are booming with significant growth since the last 1 year. In fact, the growth for smaller producers report a growth of almost 150%, stated Rob McMillan, founder of Silicon Valley Bank Wine Division. Interestingly, the components of virtual wine tourism include virtual wine tasting, virtual winery tours, advanced virtual wine experiences like drone deliveries, digital scent experiences, hologram technologies, and more. Also, India is the fastest growing country in terms of wine consumption and registered a growth rate of approximately 7%, highlights Mordor Intelligence. And to talk more about this, today we have the founder of the Happy High Bartending Academy and Wine School. He is one of the 80 official cognac educators in the world and the only certified wine educator in India with this field. He also runs corporate workshops and has written for publications like the TOI, NDTV, Deccan Herald, and more. Here is introducing Ajit Balki. Hello Ajit, welcome to the Deliberate Talks podcast. How are you doing?
Very well, Dakshin. Great to be here on your podcast.
So Ajit, I've been following your journey. It's been fantastic. And you got one of the best jobs. You have what people see as a dream job. Let's begin with that firstly. And breaking the myopic lenses of drinking at work. How did you get into the world of wine and spirits, and how did Happy High happen to you?
Okay, so Happy High was not thought about, but drinking at work always fascinated. So, yeah, it's of course, once you come into the industry, you know that you're not drinking all the time, and there is only one liver. So I hardly drink. People should know that drinking has to be very, very responsible. One life, so drink well. But nonetheless, I started off as a hotelier early 2000s. So it's almost 20 years now.
Wow.
And in the initial 10 years, I worked as a hotelier, managed bars, managed nightclubs. I worked in India. I worked in London for a few years. And I realized, this world of beverages out of the entire hoteliering aspect is what really fascinated me. So I specialized in wines in the UK.
Okay.
And then when I came back to India, I started off training people on wines. And I started training people on other spirits. So 2 years of that. And then I said, no, money is important.
Right.
And let's look at furthering my knowledge. And hence I got a chance to do my MBA in marketing at the SVJ in Mumbai.
Mm-hmm.
And post which I worked as a project intern in a couple of FMCG projects.
Mm-hmm.
And switched my career into services marketing. I was with a loyalty marketing company post SVJ.
Mm-hmm.
And almost close to 8 months, 9 months, I realized that it's not fun. I don't know what am I doing.
Mm-hmm.
And I really crave to be back in wine and spirits.
Right.
And that's it. I resigned from my job with the hope of getting back. And I started knocking liquor company doors for jobs because that's where I wanted to be.
Right.
And after a year of struggle and interviews and, thank yous, I finally decided, there is no option. So I am an entrepreneur by force. And that is where Happy High began. And it's never been, there's no looking back now. It's 7 years.
Wow.
And I don't think I can go back to a job anymore.
So you're not high, but you're always happy because of your entrepreneurial journey.
Yeah, absolutely. And Happy High was a name I thought about because it is a state of mind.
Right.
And I feel whether alcohol or no, everybody has the right to be happy high on things that they love to do.
Right.
So maybe dance or maybe anything else. Eating chocolates gives you that happy high. So yes, a happy high is about that happy state of mind, and alcohol is could be one reason for the same. But
Right.
again, Dakshin, with respect to alcohol, I love it because I enjoy the flavors,
Yeah.
but I never enjoy the high. I stop when I feel that exact happy high moment is going away, or crossing that happy high moment is when I would stop.
Uh-huh.
And I would encourage listeners to be very cautious
Right.
with alcohol too.
Right. I'm very curious, because you talk about the science behind it rather than, the fun behind what people drink for, or, especially on a Friday night or a Saturday night when they're out with their friends, and then you suddenly start talking about the science behind the alcohol or the flavors and the taste and everything else. Do your friends really get annoyed by you, or they're very curious to understand this whole thing in terms of learning alcohol, learning spirits, wines, and more?
Well, when I'm out with my friends, I shut up. Whatever you want to order,
Right.
they just leave it up to me.
Right.
And I don't get preachy unless if they ask, because then I kill their night. Because education is sometimes good, and that's when I say that my job starts at 8 in the morning, and sometimes at 8. The last time was 7 in the morning when I had a glass of wine in my hand because it was an early class.
Wow.
So yeah, it's not exactly drinking at work.
But so cool. Wine at 7 in the morning. Like, what's your class like? They must be more pumped up because this is the lecture they don't want to miss. How's that mood really?
No, well, sometimes the 7 does not happen too often. It at least starts at 9. But
Mhm.
this time I had a certain schedule that I had to adhere to. So I
Mhm.
said 7 o'clock, you have to be here. And these are boys who I train for bartending.
Uh-huh.
And I'm like, if you're late, if you're a minute beyond 7, you pay 5,000 rupees. So you better be. So they were all there at 6:30. And 7 o'clock, so we had a cup of coffee first. I had biscuits and cakes in the morning because it is dangerous to imbibe alcohol empty stomach, and I was not sure. So by 7:30, yeah, we were tasting.
Very cool.
But yes, all of these professional tastings we spit though,
Uh-huh.
which people may not
Yes.
be aware.
Yes.
99% of what we have in our mouth goes into the sink.
Yes. And that's an interesting one because, most of them are not aware about the tasting aspect of it. But what's the reason behind spitting it, and what's the real reason for it?
No, if you don't spit after 6 wines, you're done.
That's the only reason, right?
Yes, you're sleeping on the table. Yeah. So I'll tell you, I was judging a competition in South Africa. This is in 2018. So I had a panel of other judges from other countries, and I was the only one from India.
Mhm.
And we were tasting and judging. We had to score those wines. There was a consensus and discussion as to why did you score low? Why did I score high?
Right.
So we were tasting practically 150 wines in 3 hours.
Wow.
So if I were to decide to consume them all, it is 150 into 50 ml. And
Wow.
if you do the math, it's a lot of wine. Perhaps be dead on the table if I were to drink everything. So yeah, it has to be spitting all the time.
Wow. Very interesting. Right. Your job has so many moods to it, and every time I hear more about it, it's more fascinating. But Ajit, you're also recognized as one of the cognac educators in India by BNIC, and one of the 80 educators in the world is what I've heard, right?
Correct.
What
Correct.
makes it so special, firstly? What goes in the process of being selected? And what are the perks of being accredited?
Well, cognac as a beverage, I always loved.
Mhm.
Not because anything in Hindi movies, especially like in DDLJ, Dilwale Dulhania and Chandni, it has been immortalized in those movies where Rishi Kapoor and Shah Rukh Khan said that cognac sharab nahi hoti.
Mhm.
That's where it began. So cognac was always on my mind. And then pre-BNIC cognac educator thing happened. I was always keen about cognac. So I was tasting cognacs. In fact, in 2016, I was also published by Remy Martin as one of the first in their Slash campaign. So I was the first Indian to be featured in their Slash campaign, which featured other celebs from across the globe.
Mhm.
So I always loved cognac and I was drinking it. I was educating people about it. And this is how BNIC happened, my website and through social media and all of that. So we chatted and they said, okay, good. Do you want to come on board? I said, yeah, why not? So then that's when the perks began. I was flown to France. I was in Cognac. So Cognac is the world's best known brandy and it comes from the Cognac region of France.
Right.
And I was flown there. I was in Cognac for 4 or 5 nights. I went to different Cognac cellars, tasted Cognac's 100 years old, 120 years old. A lot of cobwebs in the cellars. You had to remove those and pick stuff from the barrels. These were the perks where I as an educator could get to see a lot of things firsthand, which means they are all in my head. All those stories keep, all those images, all those experiences are there. And that just helps me train people better. But it always feels nice that you're the only wine educator from India, one of the few ones in the community. And because you like the beverage, you're very happy to talk about it all the time. And whenever given a chance, you sip it.
Right. I'm again curious to understand why something like a Happy High Academy came into the picture. Like, who is it for and what's the demand for it in a country like India?
Well, there is unlimited demand, I strongly feel. And this took me 5 years, not to realize that there is unlimited demand, but to realize that, okay, now I am ready.
Mm-hmm.
So the Happy High Academy is a bartending academy, and we also run wine courses.
Mm-hmm.
So the primary audience is professionals or wannabe professionals who are 12th pass or come from graduation. So they are youngsters in the 20 to 25-year-old bracket.
Mm-hmm.
However, we also curate wine courses for consumers.
Right.
We curate a lot of corporate workshops and all of that. So when it comes to the Happy High, like I said, we took 5 years to realize, okay, now we are ready to offer education, which we feel is lacking in the city with existing bartenders, or because we've trained a lot of bartenders in the city. So we saw that a lot of basics were lacking, and that's where we built upon and created the Happy High Bartending Academy, because we thought we could be the Ivy League of bartending in the country. So baby steps. This is the entrepreneur bit of it.
Right. Okay. Great. And just understanding from a bartending perspective, from a career aspect of it, do people really have a perception about it, even as a career option to be seriously pursued? Especially, how do parents really react to it when children say, I want to pursue a bartending course?
Well, bartending as a profession is in the similar boat as a chef's profession would have been 15 years back or 20 years back. And that's when the whole thing changed, when Chef Sanjeev Kapoor came on TV and they say, oh, it's not a bawarchi ka naukri and you're not just a cook.
Mm-hmm.
And now chefs are out in the restaurants talking to people. But bartending is something that parents are not convinced.
Right. Right.
Bartending is perceived as a profession where they see their children actually crawling back from work into their homes, completely sozzled.
Mm-hmm.
They think it is an unsafe environment to work.
Right.
So a lot of these things, but of course, people are seeing it as a career. At least over the last 5 years, things have changed, 5-6 years.
Right.
And it's not a difficult thing to convince parents also these days that it's a great profession which can take you places, because there are a lot of precedents where Indian bartenders have gone out and made a name for the country and themselves, of course.
Right. And what about the pay scale here with respect to the opportunities as well, and about the pay scale? That's an easy conversation to have with parents, especially when you're convincing them to enroll for a course, and then you see the job opportunities beyond that. So what is the kind of pay scale in a country like India?
Well, when I speak to students or parents, my initial pitch is to discourage them to come into the industry.
Okay. And why so?
Because most see those Tom Cruise-like image of a bartender from that movie, Cocktail.
Right.
So I tell them, boss, that is what you see front of the house when the customers are there, where a bartender is making drinks and chatting up with customers and looking cool. But prior to that 4 hours, there is a lot of back-end work, which is lifting heavy loads, a lot of manual labor that is required.
Right.
There is a lot of this which is not shown to you. So yes, there is a lot of hard work, and you start at 10,000 a month.
Okay.
So first, you need to be mentally prepared for that for a couple of years at least.
Mm-hmm.
And then based on your performance, salaries can go much higher.
Mm-hmm.
But the carrot or the brighter side of bartending that people come in for, and they achieve also, most of them, is to go outside of the country. They
Right.
want to go outside the country, and cruise lines are favorite
Okay.
option, or countries like Maldives, Seychelles, and a lot of Middle East, including Dubai and Doha, Qatar, and that zones, where
Okay.
salaries go to say 60, 80,000 to begin with, where
Wow.
all other expenses are taken care of,
Right.
your food, accommodation, and everything. So for most people who come from humble backgrounds, that is good money. So you do your hotel management, or after 12th, you do a bartending course. You work in India for a couple of years at 10, 12,000, 15,000 a month.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it. At 22, you're out of the country earning 80.
Wow.
When most of your peers from other careers are still wondering ki kya karna hai, what to do in their careers.
Right. Right. And what's the growth from here for a bartender in terms of a career growth scale? If obviously they start with the 10 and 15, go to the cruise, spend a couple of years there working, and then what next? What happens in their growth journey?
So there are two ways that I look at it when it comes to a bartender's journey. So you have to be very clear whether you are made for India or you're made for outside. So if you're in India, if you're a bartender, I would suggest that you aim for a promotion every year.
Mm-hmm.
That a bartender should do that. Otherwise, they get stagnant. The salary stagnate at a point.
Mm-hmm.
So every year, a promotion from a bartender at 21 to a beverage manager at 27 to a food and beverage director at say around 30, 32, 33. This is the optimistic scenario.
Right.
But by 35, in 15 years, food and beverage director is possible. So from a 10,000 to a current pay scale of around 2.5 lakhs.
Right.
For a food and beverage director.
Oh.
So that is the growth path in India.
Mm-hmm.
But for people going to the cruises, what I suggest is stay there for 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
Because nobody needs you here. Your parents are relatively young.
Right.
And you're not married and all of that. So this is the time you go and earn quite a bit. And then after 15, 20 years, when you're 35, a lot of people need you here. You would be married. That's when you come back here. But the problem, what happens or most people face is when they come at 35 into the country, they've been used to a couple of lakhs or 3 lakhs, 4 lakhs, whatever in their accounts.
Right.
They can't come here and work on land because the salaries are much lower.
Right.
And with the cruise experience, they don't have no clue as to what happens on land.
Right.
And that's when they decide to go back. And people spend 40 years of their life in cruise lines.
Wow. Okay.
So yeah, the idea is at 35, come back. At 40, come back with 15, 20 years. But come with a strong plan to open up something of your own. It could be as basic as a sandwich stall. Because you've earned enough and you'll earn money from all your investments. And something to keep you going, a small business is good. So that's what I suggest people to do.
Right. So in that case, just to sum up the whole experience of a career in bartending, what are 3 to 5 most important tips according to you for someone who needs to consider this as a career option?
For someone to consider this as a career option, first is you need to be ready to work really hard, very, very hard physically.
Mm-hmm.
It is not AC. I mean, there is air conditioning during work hours, but outside of that, it could be non-AC. So it's going to be soaked in perspiration. That's going to be a lot of hard work. Hospitality hours could be quite long as well.
Mm-hmm.
But over the last few years, there has been regulations at the associate level, at the rank and file level, where people are working 9 hours, but at managerial levels, they could be, I used to work 16, 15 hours a day.
Right.
So you need to be prepared for that. So if you have that is the first block you need to clear. Are you ready? Your attitude has to be, I'll give it all. Once that is there, that's about it. You are ready to be in the industry. Once you're in the industry, you need to start thinking like a owner or the director of the hotel or the beverage director, which most people lack. People have a very myopic view. They think just to save their work, to save their jobs. But I tell them that think like an owner, think like a beverage director, and that's what will help you to grow faster in your careers. And that's it. And be open, be mobile to opportunities. Don't say, oh no, I'm from Mumbai, I'll stay in Mumbai.
Right.
So you might be limiting yourself.
Makes sense. Right. And wine training, you mentioned that's another important aspect of your business also. What's the wine culture like currently in India?
Well, if you look at papers over the last 10 years,
Mm-hmm.
there has been significant growth in numbers,
Right.
10-20% CAGR every year.
Right.
But the base is so small that we're still speaking of 10 ml of wine per capita
Mm.
per year, as opposed to 40 liters in France.
Oh, okay.
So we are nowhere. I mean, our wine industry must be around 1,000-1,500 acres of land under
Mm-hmm.
cultivation. We're speaking of France, which is at 1 million hectares.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we are quite there. But the reason is not that Indians do not know wine. Of course, that is one reason, that Indians do not know about wine because it does not come to us naturally.
Right.
But the major roadblock is Indians cannot afford wine.
Okay.
The basic drinkable wine, according to me, would start at 600 rupee a bottle.
Mm.
And if you do all the math and the reason why Indians drink, people will be happy with a bottle of whiskey or rum and sit for a week.
Mm.
That I was just reading an article 2 days back where UP government is trying to impose a policy where they are trying to popularize or promote beers and wines as opposed to spirits with their taxation schemes, because bang for the buck is more in spirits than beer and wine.
Right.
And that's what they are trying to kind of bring it at par, so that the others also, and there's less drinking a problem also.
Right.
But in majority of the states, wine is not affordable, and that's the reason it's not growing.
Interesting. Globally, even in India, for that fact, when we see certain trends like wine in cans or, surge in buying wine online, and, globally, scenarios like virtual wine tasting rooms. What are
Right.
your thoughts about this evolving trends of wine consumption? Where do you think this is leading?
So wines in cans has just started in India.
Right.
These cans, if you speak to any person who is slightly more mature in their wine journey, they would completely rubbish those cans. Completely. Because they are not serious. They are meant for a 21-year-old who's just starting to drink.
Mm-hmm.
So with India's demographic advantage that we speak about, that most of India is under 35 and all of that, these cans are now coming out,
Right.
specifically targeting that segment.
Mm.
These wines are sweeter and they're carbonated, they're fizzy, they're more fun and picnic wines than those serious, pour in the glass wines
Right.
of sorts.
Right.
But this trend is picking up. Ultimately, it's a business.
Mm.
I, as a trainer, can say, what are you drinking? But ultimately, it's the consumer's choice, which I'm fine with. So if cans are working, cans are working. So it's a good trend. At least people know that there is something called as wine. These guys from cans may graduate to a bottle of wine whenever they start earning better and knowing wines better. That's where our role comes in as the Happy High, that we are trying to tell consumers what is good and what is not so good.
Mm-hmm.
Or rather than telling them what is not so good, telling them, okay, what are the varieties available? Then the consumer can make a more knowledgeable choice than just drink whatever was marketed into their faces.
Mm-hmm.
Cans is good. Second is virtual tastings. Virtual tastings, I'm not a fan of. Although during the pandemic, I have done a few.
Mm-hmm.
But that warmth, it cannot ever be virtual, is what I feel. That clink of the glasses that can happen when people are sitting out, that cannot be replaced at all. But virtual is the way that we have to go, given the current situation. There is no option. But am I a fan? No, not really. Will this trend last? Not really again. Not really. People are dying to meet other people. People are trying, wanting to hug other people, feel that warmth. But it's happening because nothing else can happen.
Right. And, there's another aspect to this trend, which is the virtual tour of vineyards, or, the wine tourism that they call, in terms of using AR. And what do you think about that? Is that helpful from, like you mentioned, we're not educated enough about wines, or we're not exposed to enough wines? Do you think that's an interesting aspect to actually build in the education part for a country like India?
Well, yes. To begin with, if somebody's not been to a vineyard at all, then a one-time tour of a distillery or a winery, maybe 2 or 3. But after that, personally speaking, I don't know about people, so I don't want to just generalize. Personally speaking, I wouldn't want to do a fourth winery tour, because when you visit a winery, the vineyard, it is not about seeing what you see. It is about feeling it. The air, you smell the smell of the barrel room, the smell of the barrels, the smell of the soil, the chill in the air.
Mhm.
And then that pour of wine in the glass, it is magical.
Right.
And that cannot be achieved with virtual. It
Mhm.
is all temporary. And it is for people who have never done those things. So in the beginning, it's good. It is good. And so in a country like India, that should definitely work for a lot of years, because we have got a lot of population who will take some time to reach out to different vineyards of the world.
Right.
So we are as good.
Makes sense. Right. Yeah, just coming back to the training aspect of yours in terms of wines. What goes into a wine training really, and who is it for, and what all does it include?
So wine training, we have a course called the Wine 101,
Mhm.
where we specifically target beginners. These beginners may be aspiring professionals or wine enthusiasts who want to drink better.
Mhm.
So what are we trying to tell them? That in that course is wine is different. Wine is just not one, and don't base your judgment just on one wine experience, that you drank one wine somewhere and then you say, I don't like wine because I had it somewhere.
Mm.
There are, say, at least 5, 10, 20 varieties of wine. In our course, in our day's course, we taste around 12 wines.
Okay.
That also are representative of most styles that are available, but there are a lot more. So finding that right wine is like matchmaking. Wine is like that. You can't meet the first girl and say, oh, I don't believe in girls and all girls are like that. It's something similar. So that wine course is essentially to tell you that wine is very different.
Right.
Based on the grapes, based on when the grapes came from, based on the way the wine is made. And then, we taste wine. So essentially, we are trying to dissect wine in a very basic way to tell consumers that, okay, if you never liked wine before, or even if it's your first time in wine, see what you like. These are 12 kinds of wine from different terroirs and different regions. See if you find something fit out of that. If you did not find, then sorry, you need to try a little more.
Mhm.
You will find your fit, because there is a wine for every person, which I strongly believe, because there are so many flavor profiles.
Right.
So at the end of the wine course, people are fairly confident of going to a restaurant, looking at the wine list and asking the right questions, or going into a wine store and looking at the bottles and make some sense of that.
Mhm.
And at least ask good questions to the wine seller on floor, and ask better recommendations or counter question also.
Mhm.
It is not that whatever they recommend, just bring it home.
Right.
Because many a times in India, the wine seller may not be educated. He must just be a marketing person trying to sell whatever he has, but with no knowledge. So it is very important that we have, as wine consumers, there is a little bit of education that's definitely needed.
Right. Very interesting point that you picked out there. Then I'm curious in terms of what's the most challenging part about your job, especially or from the academic business job. Does the industry fluctuate in demands for a consultant with a situation like lockdown? Apart from that, you mentioned most of them are marketing people rather than, the ones who are educated about it. So what's really the challenging part when you get into the consulting mode for hoteliers or businesses?
It is a challenge that most restaurateurs, upcoming restaurants, don't lay much importance on food and beverage, is what we've seen. It is often an afterthought.
Okay. Wow.
So people would spend a crore or a crore and a half on interiors, and then say, oh, food is also there, and beverages is also there.
Mhm.
I've got calls saying that the entire restaurant is ready and they're looking for a chef. I said, what? I mean, so who designed the kitchen?
Right.
Who designed the bar? And then when it comes to spending on that chef or a consultant or kitchen consultant, or they are thinking, oh, we don't have money, we have limited budget. So you just spend 2 crores.
Right.
And you're thinking for a few lakhs, because that is the core of the business.
Mhm.
So that is where the challenge is. So we don't break our heads too much, because it just given our bandwidth, we don't have unlimited time, because it just keeps going back and forth. But there is a challenge where restaurateurs, most of which don't come from hoteliering backgrounds, they come from finance or other backgrounds. They just want to put it, but all they know is that the restaurant should look nice sofas, nice music, nice everything. But food and beverages is an afterthought in most cases that at least I've seen. So that is a challenge. That is a challenge.
Right. And then in that case, how do you really pitch your services, or what's the sales pitch like for hoteliers, or when someone says they want your consultation services?
Well, if somebody is coming beforehand, then they are serious. So I'll tell you, one of the restaurateurs who came from a different background approached for a consulting. So I went there. I said, okay, I'll charge you so much and we can do this and all of that. He's like, you're too expensive. I said, yeah, sure. Because it requires some sense to make things. And we've spent so many years and that's what we charge you for. So they're like, no, out of budget. I said, okay, fine. So the menu was done. And I also knew how did they get it done.
Right.
And 6 months later, they called me again.
Wow.
And I said, you didn't have budgets. I said, no, please come over. I said, okay. I went there again. And then the person whom I was speaking to is, we want you to tweak our few cocktails. I said, okay. He's like, we can't get our Long Island iced tea right. I said, there is nothing about a Long Island iced tea. There are enough YouTube videos.
Right.
And there are enough classic recipes. You just have to put that together and it's easy. You just have to hire a good bartender who can do it for you.
Right.
Like, no, we have tried everything, nothing. I said, okay, this is my charge. But he's like, but it's so easy. You're charging me so much. I said, you couldn't do it, right? A proposal of 2.5 lakhs once was negotiated. But as a business, because we are into the luxury, we don't want to get into this negotiation business. We said, sorry, we don't negotiate. Right. We think what we are charging is fair. So after a few tries, that customer said, okay, no problem then, fine. Let's start work. I'll send you an advance of 12,500 rupees. I said, what? And then I realized he had missed a zero in the 2.5 lakhs and he was bargaining on 25,000 rupees. So yeah, challenging, definitely. So to be honest, we are not looking on the consulting side more or less.
Right.
Because it is a lot of hassle. People shy away from giving you money after the job is done, and a lot of hassle. So as a very small company, we are very wary of that. But yes, we work on a lot of educational front. Like we work with the Marriott Group of Hotels. We work with the Taj on upskilling their employees on wines, getting them to a certain level where they can confidently speak about it and all of that. So that work is ongoing. And we are very happy to work with brands like these because they realize the importance.
Okay. Then do you have a happy high story to conclude this entire round?
Yeah. I mean, with one of the Taj units only, where I had trained them in March 2020, we started speaking of another round of the same training.
Okay.
For a different, because there is attrition, there is new staff coming in. And that was like, okay, great, pat on the back, good. But then COVID happened.
Right.
So, but yeah, enough of happy stories. And if you go on to the happy high and if you look at the Google reviews, you will see it's a lot of bartenders who've written very, very nice things about us. So that keeps us going and it really helps us do better each passing day.
Right. Makes sense. Fine stuff there, Ajit. This ends the first round of our questions. And now I'm quickly moving on to our next round, which is a rapid fire round. Okay. And gear up, some interesting, exciting questions coming your way. So ready for this?
Yes, I don't do this very often. I mean, not once in 10 years maybe. So slightly nervous too, but yeah, go on.
Okay. All right then. Your favorite spirit or wine and why?
Favorite spirit or wine and why? Okay. So I like aged spirits. Out of the aged spirits, whiskey, rum and cognac. I pick cognac.
Okay.
Because I just love the way it's produced, the story, the handmade concept, because it happens at the most smallest of equipments that is possible. It's all family driven. So they have every cognac is a nice story. So I really like cognac. And given my job, I can afford cognac. Because otherwise a bottle of cognac starts at 7,000 rupees in the Mumbai market, the most basic one. It is.
Okay, super. While most wines are difficult to pronounce for many, tell me the names of 3 most difficult ones you feel.
Oh, difficult. Oh, they are all the Greek ones.
Yeah, name a few.
So there is um, it is spelled as a Giorgiotico,
Mhm.
but if you look at the Greeks pronouncing it, it is a she or she, something like that. So I anglicize everything hence, and I tell the audience also to anglicize, because at least you get the spelling right, if not anything else.
Right, right.
And the other person knows that you don't come from a Greek background, so it's okay, as they also understand. But
Right.
Greek names are quite funny, and even words are Hungarian,
Right,
because they any of the Slavic languages,
right.
Russia or Poland or Russian wines, well, you can't pronounce them right because you don't know. Like, for example, I had a lot of Polish friends back in the UK. So if the name has to be Dakshin, your name it could start with Z,
Mm-hmm.
and then it's Dakshin. I said, how Z and Dakshin? So they have their own language. I mean, nothing to make fun out of, but yeah, it can be difficult for an English speaking person.
Right. But this is something that I've also noticed among friends, right? When we go and, order a wine, we normally prefer the one which is the most easiest to spell or name, right? Like the preferred choice for everyone would be Sola, because that's the easiest way to say it, right? Don't you
Correct.
feel?
Yeah, easy. And people are scared because they feel that people, like one of my friends who's done his hospitality
Uh-huh.
management, he's like, I don't drink wine. I said, why? I'm scared that people like you would come and admonish me for not pronouncing something correct or not knowing my aromas correct.
Right.
So I'm like, yeah, this is not the case. So a lot of people would pronounce Merlot, Merlot, as Merlot, because
Right.
that's how it should be. If there is a T, you should pronounce it, but it's French. So it
Right.
becomes Merlot. Or it's a Bordeaux. It's not
Right.
Bordeaux, it's a region in France. It's Bordeaux.
Right.
Like we say Paris, but the French say it's Paris.
Right. Even
So
cognac, right? For that fact, they say cognac.
Cognac, correct. So it is okay. It is okay. And as a professional, I would never make fun of people who would not pronounce it correctly, because they would pronounce the way they want. I just can subtly correct them if they are
Right.
my friends. Otherwise, I got the point. Ultimately, it's about communication.
Absolutely.
If I know what you're trying to say, I'm okay with it.
Right.
And as long as you're liking the wine or not liking the wine, that's about it. So your wine drinking need not start with very complex things. That's what I tell people. Either you like it or you don't like it. As
Right.
long as you know that, that's about it. You've started drinking wine.
Right. Makes sense. Okay. 3 things that make you happy high.
Food,
Uh-huh.
travel,
Right.
and sleep.
Wow. Okay. Best cocktail places when you aren't making them at home.
Best cocktail places in Mumbai: Coco,
Okay.
Air,
Okay.
Four Seasons Mumbai, and close by is Foo.
Right. Okay then. When someone says, suggest me the cheapest wine on the menu, your reply would be?
So you don't need to ask me for it. Look at the cheapest wine, I'm just ordering.
Okay. When someone spills or drops wine on their date or a fancy dinner, the first thing you do is?
Take a lot of tissues and just give it to the date.
Okay.
That's it. You can't do much. If I were to be in a 5-star hotel,
Uh-huh.
depending on the couple and where are they staying and all of that, we could have offered laundry services and alternative whatever from the. I have, as a nightclub manager, I have given shoes to one of the celebs
Wow.
who I refused entry into my club because
Okay.
he was not wearing shoes. But I also gave him employee shoes, which he wore.
Wow. I'm not going to ask you the names, so don't worry.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to.
Okay. Cool. What's the most expensive wine you have ever had?
The most expensive wine, I have had wines which in Indian rupees would be 1 lakh rupees a bottle.
Ooh. Okay.
And I have had a lot of them.
Wow. Okay. One easy tip for someone who wants to pretend to be a wine expert on the table.
Easy tip is don't pretend, because you will fall on your face, because you don't know who on the table knows a lot of wine.
Right.
And one question, and that's about it. Yeah, don't be pretentious. Just be cool with your wines. And I like such people. It's easy.
Makes sense.
You like it. So please understand, wine is just like food.
Right.
You don't go on and on about your pizza. Oh, this dough, that dough. I can smell the capsicum. I can smell the cheese. No, whether you're enjoying the pizza or no, wine starts like that.
Right. Right.
So just keep it simple.
Awesome. And finally, one reason why people should join the Happy High Academy or contact you for any of the consultation services.
The Happy High Academy is built out of love and passion for wine and spirits, and we come with a lot of experience in India and internationally. We are updated. And yes, if you want really quality service and really an educational experience which is high, or rather really updated on its pedagogy, then Happy High is the place to be. Even for consumers, it's the same. We keep it very simple for consumers.
Right. Makes sense. Very well done there, Rajat. That concludes the second segment of our show. And now this is a question that we take from our followers. And this question comes from Aksha Menon, who asks, I don't know anything about wines, but a lot of my friends talk about wine and cheese tasting events. What are some tips for someone like me who would like to go for one of these events? And what should be the kind of things that I should do in the very first wine tasting event? And what are some things I should absolutely not do?
Okay. So wine and cheese tasting is nice because wine and cheese tasting is always good if you know your cheeses and if you know your wines. But in India, generally a wine and cheese tasting refers to a very posh event of sorts.
Right.
So first thing, you need to understand if it is a professional evening or if it's just a casual evening. If it's a professional evening where there is serious wine tasting, there is one wine tasting which is for professionals, where you want to taste wines, judge wines, decide whether you want to buy that wine for your restaurant or all of that. And one is just a casual evening on wine. Then please do not wear perfume.
Okay.
Or a lot of perfume, especially if it's in a closed door. Perfume can really kill the entire wine experience because everybody is smelling the person inside the glass.
Mm-hmm.
So it is considered very rude to wear perfume. So carry it in your purse. And if you think it is a casual one, just wear it. Otherwise, don't. And then after that, since it's your first one, just accept that it's your first one and you don't know. So you can look around and listen. Don't talk, listen more. Sip, listen, sip, listen. And please remember, it is very important to hold on to your drink because unlike beer or one of these RTDs, which is 5%, wine is at least 12, 13, 14%. 3 times as potent.
Right.
So you just need to hold your drink. Otherwise, after a couple of drinks, you will already be done. So just learn to hold your drinks. And one more tip to sustain yourself in parties which are 4 hours or 5 hours is going for, in India especially, what we see is there is a lot of peer pressure. Oh, you don't have anything in your hand. Where's your glass? So people end up consuming much more than what they can.
Right.
So what we recommend is move to spritzers. So each glass will have half wine, half soda.
Right.
That cannot happen with very top of the line wines because you don't want to spend so much and then put soda.
Right.
But quaffable wines, half soda, half wine. And then instead of having 2 glasses of wine, you can have 4 glasses. So then you are seen with a glass at all times in the party and people are not complaining.
Wow. Great tips. Great stuff there, Rajat. That brings us to the end of today's episode. This was absolutely fun and I had a great time hosting you on today's episode. I hope you had a good time too.
Indeed, Dakshin. Thank you so much. It is, given the profession I am in, very few people want to listen. People have their own thoughts. So it is always nice to come on platforms like these where I can voice as to what the reality is and what we really do. So thank you very much for having me over. It's always a pleasure to talk about my profession.
It's great hosting you and thank you so much. I wish you and Happy High all the very best wishes for the years to come.
Thank you, Dakshin. Wish you the same and meet soon.
Thanks, Ajay. Well, never keep your spirits low is a perfect way to end today's show. I hope you enjoyed your time understanding the world about spirits, wines, bartending, and careers around it. If you have any question or feedback, you can write to me at thedeliberatetalks@gmail.com or connect with me on the social media channels and the audio platforms. Join in next Monday for another episode, and until then, stay safe, drink responsibly, take care of yourself, and don't forget to inspire and be inspired.